Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome back to Chalkboard Creative. I'm the mom of two young little girls. Today I wanted to talk to you about the curriculum I'm using and how it looks like at the end of the year. So I'm going to share with you my favorite workbooks. One of the reasons I like to see other people's workbooks is I like to see how they use it. Like, what do they expect their kids to do? How do they organize it? Do they sometimes skip over things? Is there like something I could learn from them in the way that they use it? Because everybody has their own way of approaching a curriculum or a workbook. I usually try and choose workbooks that we will stick with versus just choosing a workbook that looks like it meets all the needs, but that it's not something we're going to follow through on. Another reason I like to look at other people's workbooks and curriculum is I kind of want to see where their kids are at if they're relatively the same age as my daughter. I don't believe in comparing kids, but it's great to get ideas from other parents if there's something you're like, wow, that's a really fun way of teaching that, or this might work better for my own child's learning style versus what we have. So I think this is a great time to look at curriculum after it's been used for an entire year. We're almost done with our school year and we like to finish before Memorial Day. There's a lot of great curriculums out there, but not every kid or every family has the same learning styles or learning needs. And then finally, will this curriculum or workbook suit my family's needs or my child's needs? Not every child probably will use the same curriculum or workbook all the time, but at least being able to see how other people are doing it will give you a general sense of this might be something I'd like to explore more. So let's get started with the curriculum that I use for math. The first one I have is Matthew C. Alpha. We started with the primer or the primer. I'm not entirely sure how they say that, but we use Alpha. And I'm going to go through and show you how we use it. So this is Matthew C. and it comes in multiple sets and options. I got the Level Up set, which is the student workbook, the test book, the DVD that you would need. And this one came with a textbook, but we never ever use a textbook. There is also an option for you to get access to the online account where you can watch the DVD online. And I am doing that next year when we do beta, because having to set up the DVD even once a week with our Mac that doesn't have an actual DVD like drive it's ridiculous. So just a quick little flip through. These are the kinds of activities that you're going to find in Matthew C. It's really simple. And they also do have some fun things for kids to do, like coloring, which my daughter really enjoys. Now, the way I use it is there are about 6 days of activities per lesson. So on a Monday, we will start with watching the DVD. And then as you can see that we are on lesson 26, there is a letter after every lesson. And that is just the day of practice. Each day worksheet is double-sided. So my daughter, I require her to do both the front and the back. And there's not a lot of show your work because in this particular level, it's basically mastery of addition facts and subtraction facts. So you're not going to see any of that kind of stuff. So again, she will basically, I'm so distracted by looking at this page. This is ridiculous. So this is what happens at the end of the year. Your daughter likes to kind of make her book look used. But yeah, so I will help her with these particular questions where you read it. Some of them are a little bit longer, and then either I'll have the addition or the subtraction written in, or she has to listen as I read it to her and I ask her, are we adding or subtracting? So as I said, it's divided up into 6 days. I require on Mondays to do, we watch the lesson and we do the first front and back. Then Tuesdays we do 26B or B. We always skip the C because she usually understands it by then. And then the last 3 days are dedicated to systematic review. And systematic review is just that lesson of the week plus like previous lessons. So it's more of a cumulative. And again, she does front and back. They like to mix in addition, so she has to be on her toes. Sometimes she gets the right answer, but it's the wrong question, and I'm like, you need to go back and look. And then after every single chapter, you have the application enrichment, which changes. She wants to do this one. We ran out of time on this, so she'll just do this in her free time, but she does like to do the application and enrichment. And I think those are fun. It's just a different way of doing the same work that they've been doing all week. So we're going to finish this by the end of April, but our school year is not over until like May, but like the week before Memorial Day. So then she'll just do something extra, some extra math practice. The test booklet we also use, but I am not a huge believer in testing children in first grade. I mean, I know exactly where she's at, but we still do it. But my only difference in it, like a traditional test, would be no notes. I let her use the blocks. In the beginning, when I thought that she was supposed to be memorizing these math facts like in a week, it caused much confusion and she was very stressed out, and it does not work for my child. I can't handle the stress of her being upset. So what we do is she gets the blocks, she does it on her own, no prompts from me, and then we're done. I will look over it and make sure that everything is correct, and we move on. Now, after about 10 lessons, you'll get a unit test. And I mean, it could be 10 lessons, it could be 6 lessons, it doesn't matter, but they're somewhat longer, and I don't want her to do that in one sitting. So what I'll do is I'll do a front and a back on one day and a front and a back on another day until she's finished with it. And so this particular unit test was only 6 units. So she just did the front and back, and she did the front and back. And that's pretty much that. It's very straightforward. Again, we're gonna finish this. Oh, look, there's a final test. Ooh, she's going to be finishing this in May, the final test, but the actual learning will be done in at the end of April. So that is Math UC. These books hold up really well. I don't require a lot of extra work for that, but we do supplement with a couple other things. So even though Math UC is our main curriculum, I do supplement a little bit with a couple workbooks. I have 2 that I kind of like to focus on, at least at this age: place value and time. So I'll talk about time first. Time is created by teacher-created resources, and it is a very thin and small book. Again, it is a supplement for our education. It is not the whole education curriculum that we use for math, and it does say that this is grades 1 to 2. This is a great review, very focused, and all it discusses is time. The next one I think that's really great to work on is place value. Math UC does do place value at the beginning of every single book, but if your kid just needs a little bit of extra help, because a 9-month school period is a really long time, and the particular curriculum that we're focusing on is solely addition and subtraction, this is a great find, and I'll show you a little bit more. So I alternate between time and place value. We will do a page a day from time all week, and then the next week we'll do place value. So these are really simple. It could be considered warm-ups because there's only 6 questions on each page, and I'll read her the directions, and then she just goes at it. I mean, this is super quick and easy. I think it's great review. We do these usually when we finish out the year. So this is where we're at right now in this year. So we do 1 a day, and it's pretty simple. I'll do the first one with her, and then I just let her do the rest. And there's enough for her to finish this as practice for the summer. That is time. Place value is covered in Math UC at the beginning of each of the levels that we've done so far. So I think that practicing place value a little bit throughout the year is really good for my own daughter, because sometimes she forgets where the tens go, and if she sees a single, she gets a little confused and tries to put a 0 behind it. So it's just a good reminder. So we started this off in August of 2020. We've been much better about doing it though in her first grade year. They have fun activities. They're pretty straightforward. A lot of them repeat, so it's just like extra practice. Next year, she will be doing multi-digit addition and subtraction. So I think that's where this is really going to be solidified, and then we won't have to do so much practice on it. And as I said, we just alternate with the time book, and we do one a week every day, unless she has a test. So if she has a test in her Math UC curriculum, she'll do that test after her lesson, and then on the days she doesn't do a test, she obviously does this, and she enjoys it. She likes to move ahead sometimes. She did this today, and then I was busy with her sister, so she decided to move on and do more. So I thought that was really great. So moving on to language arts, I have like a rotation of 3 books. The first book I use is Gentle Grammar by Mom's Delights. This is really wonderful. There's lots of opportunities for your kid to get daily practice that's not too overwhelming. I find that the layout is nice. It's super simple. And what's great is it teaches grammar without having to make it like super formal and like, oh gosh, we're doing grammar again. She doesn't even mention like sentences and commas, but you're learning that as you go through the book. This is level 1. Now, this is the one that I spend the most time just tailoring. We don't do it every day. I try and have her do it twice a week. But I think for my own particular daughter and her attention span, and the fact that we are very focused in creating a strong reader, so we do a lot of reading and phonics. I mean, not a lot, but that is the main focus at this age. I do bring in a little bit of language arts. This is part of her language arts. So I don't actually make her do the whole page unless it's a really simple page in one sitting. It could be that we only spend a week on one page because I divide them into 2. So this was the first page, and as you can see, she did this one day and then she did it again the next day. And I really enjoy this curriculum because I feel like it's applicable stuff. It's things that she understands. The questions, most of the words are words that she can read herself. I'll help her with some things, particularly at the beginning of the year. It had a great start to it. The fantastic thing about Gentle Grammar is you're learning grammar, but you're not actually being told that this is a sentence. I mean, obviously I use that when I teach her, but it's not rote like that. It's a very natural way of teaching it. So I do add these little lines in because if I don't, she runs out of room. And in the beginning, she would dictate to me verbally, I would write it, and then she would copy it. As we've moved on throughout the year, she now writes her own sentences. She says her own sentence, and then she can write it. So it talks about is and are. There's a memory lesson. Then she learned how to answer questions in complete sentences. And again, I divide everything up. Some of these aren't labeled by date, but you can see that we don't do them all in one day. I think it helps not cause too much of an overload of information, and she does well chewing on something for a bit in order for it to really encode in her mind. I think this is a great book for her in terms of handwriting, because even though it's kind of a double-edged sword. I don't think there's enough room for her to write, but also I think that the constriction of being in this one line also helps her. Sometimes we'll just start her writing. If I know that her answer is going to be long, I'll give her some extra right after the prompt. And so the main points of this is I have her do the lessons 2 times a week. I divide it up, and she doesn't really want to doodle after this. But she seems to be enjoying this. I find that it's been really helpful in helping her become a better writer, because she does like to write. This is what we did today. So it was name 2 kinds of red fruit, and she wrote down that 2 kinds of red fruit are apples and strawberries. So when I asked her, I will verbally ask her, and then she will verbalize her answer, and then we will work slowly to write it out. So that's also why I only do half a lesson at a time. It is a long process to verbalize your response and then go through that, especially since we don't do a formal spelling curriculum yet, which we will be doing next year in 2nd grade. So we're going to get through this. We probably will do a little bit over the summer. Again, I'll do 2 days a week. I love the fact that this is just open and go. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. The next workbook that we use is Learning Without Tears, Building Writers. Learning Without Tears is the creator of Handwriting Without Tears, which we've used and really enjoyed. And this is just, I believe this is actually their kindergarten book, but we didn't start it in kindergarten. And I think I'm actually going to bump my daughter up because this seems like she's doing really well with it. But let's take a look inside and see what's going on. This is a fantastic book. As you can see, there's lots of big pictures. There's not a lot of writing because the idea is that she's focusing on her handwriting. She is a lefty and I'm a righty, and I find certain things difficult to correct because I think it's just the nature of her writing like this and just going over. But for the most part, I think she does a good job. It'll teach you the different types of writing very simply. It's nothing too crazy. We started with narrative writing. Now she's in information writing, and then she's going to talk about opinion argument writing. Now I realize that they tailor this to kindergartners, but I honestly don't think that a kindergartner would be able to encode that meaningfully at that age. If you're learning how to read, this would be a very difficult thing because it does use words that are not CVC words. So I realize they've marketed it to kindergartners, but this is also used in public schools, so that could be why. So very simple. There's a lot of scaffolding where they'll start with work. They've got this great example. They'll show you the first sentence in the beginning. You will write that first sentence, but as you move on, they'll give you the sentence prompt, I pick pumpkins, but then you have to use this and make your own sentences. So I really enjoy the scaffolding. Again, it's really solidifying. The start of a sentence is a capital, the end is a period. We do in the beginning we did 2 pages a day, but now that we're doing more reading in the afternoon as practice, I will circle words that she gets wrong. I enjoy the fact that there are opportunities for them to write about things that interest them. So on this page, she was doing narrative writing, and she was talking about Elsa and Anna getting ready for school. So they asked her to draw pictures, and then she had to write her sentences, and then she turned it into first, next, last, because we had been focusing on that for the better part of 2 to 3 weeks. And I think she did really well with that. And then she talked about 3 things she likes about Barbie dolls. So again, I asked her, and then we worked together to get these words written down. And because she's in 1st grade, I think it was better for her as a confident writer to say it. And she actually was spelling it on her own. So I think that this is a really good book to start in 1st grade. Then she did first, next, last here. And now we're working on information writing. So they'll scaffold it, and then you have to finish it, and then they barely give you anything. The next workbook that we use is one that I've used since the beginning. We use it throughout the summer. It's one of my favorites. It's Explode the Code. They have, I think they have levels up to 7. We started with Get Set for the Code, but Explode the Code is a daily phonics workbook, which is completely independent learning. And as I said, we do it during the summer. So let's take a look at Explode the Code. One of the things I love most about Explode the Code is the fact that it is basically open and go. She barely even needs to read the directions. Each activity is familiar because she's done them over and over again. So she knows the drill. It's just the words and the rules are now changing. So she learned here putting a silent E. This is still a big thing. I still remind her silent E makes the vowel say its name, but she's getting much better at this. So this is earlier this year. As I said, they repeat. There's lots of practice. The only thing that's somewhat odd is sometimes we'll find an illustration, and she is unaware of what it's asking. And then she asked me for help, and I'm like, I don't even know what that picture is a picture of. So that's just the fun thing about Explode the Code. Sometimes the pictures are funky. These are probably the more harder ones because first of all, they're somewhat silly sentences. So I think she finds that confusing. And she basically just reads the sentences, and then she chooses the one that the picture is describing. So this is great. It gives, you're working on blends at the beginning of words, you're working on blends at the end of the word, and these are all blends that she's actually already learned with All About Reading. They actually use the same approach to phonics teaching. We will probably do some over the summer when we do our review. We'll move on to book 4, which I already have. So moving on to science. We don't have a formal science curriculum, which means that I don't do science 2 days a week, every single week. We do science and history maybe once a week, and we skip around a lot based on, what we're interested in and how we approach it. But I have really liked this series, and I find it's great. Right now I'm using it for science, but they also have a geography book that I used last year, which my daughter loved. We completely finished it. It's wonderful. And that is the Evan Moor Skill Sharpeners Science Grade 1. What I most particularly enjoy about it is at this age, it's completely independent learning. It's very easy for my daughter to actually be able to read the words that are in there and do it on her own. So I'll show you what we've done so far because we're not done with it. We are not really good about doing formal book work. So it might look, obviously it does not look like we've done much, but we do other science. We do read alouds, we look around. A lot of our science is just learned by living, and then we also are part of a co-op, so she'll do science in that. But this book is written to align with the next generation science standards. I feel like she's getting a solid introduction at this age to understand things. We are actually going to be starting her formal science probably in 4th grade. I have something picked out that I really do love. I think it'll be great for my daughter. She enjoys science, but it's not something that I'm super gung-ho about actually teaching. And so it's pretty easy. It starts off with a little bit of reading about whatever you're learning. So I will have her read it to me, which is pretty straightforward, and it has pictures of some of the words are hard. At least there's a picture reminder of what the word is, and then she does a visual literacy. They've got some vocabulary, which she really enjoys doing, and then there's a hands-on activity. Super simple. Like technically you could do one of these little subsections a day and definitely get through this book. Unfortunately, I am not that diligent with my science, so we are definitely going to be doing this during the summer because she actually really enjoys this. And then finally, this is not actually a curriculum, but it is a book that I got because we do this as part of our science curriculum. And what this is Raising Little Shoots Phenology Wheel Guide. And it's a wonderful way of your child learning about what nature looks like in your area in the different seasons. If you are not familiar with Raising Little Shoots, it is part of the Exploring Nature with Children curriculum. I basically just downloaded it and then had it bound at Office Depot. And it shows you how to go through making a phenology wheel. And it can be set up to include the liturgical feasts, or it can be much simpler like my daughter and mine. So we are 2 months behind. We definitely need to get going on this because it is now spring and we still need to do February and March. We did have the Snowmageddon in Texas, so that stuck out. So I think that she's going to be pretty good to just color February as all white because it was snowy for about a week and a half. And we moved here to Texas from California where we never had snow. So that is definite memory in her mind. So this is hers and this is mine, and we do it together. You basically can have the seasons around the edge. Did get template stencils because I wanted her to be successful and have fun doing this. And so I find that having the stencils available was really helpful for her to draw it out. We are working with watercolors, and I think she is just exquisite at doing them at this age. So I would highly recommend this as just a fun way to do seasons. We'll probably frame this and put this up in her room. Thanks for joining me today as we look through the workbooks that my daughter's been using all year long. I hope you got some great ideas and some suggestions or tips if you also use those workbooks. If you like what you're seeing, make sure to hit the subscribe button below and give me a like. I hope you have a wonderful day. Be blessed.